You know, according to the Centers for Disease Control, football is the leading cause for sport-related traumatic brain injury in males between the ages of 10 and 19.
On Fox 10 News at 5, Fox 10 News reporter Hal Sherrick showed you how some schools are taking an extra step to protect players from long-term concussion damage. It's a baseline test done before the season that helps identify concussion symptoms during the season.
And so in part 2 of his special report, Blocking Brain Injury, Hal shows you how the test works, and he speaks with a neurosurgeon about minimizing the potential danger.
Getting your bell rung was part of what you did.
Football was a different game 30 or 40 years ago. Getting your bell rung or a dinger was just part of the game. Looking back, these coaches are pretty sure they had concussions during their playing days.
I know I did. Choctawhatchee High School, I can still remember. Played the whole second half. Didn't even know what was going on. And watched the film the next Monday, and it was like watching a new movie you've never seen.
Coach Terry Curtis's Bulldogs at UMS Wright High School made it through the season with no concussions so far. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for Daphne Trojans head coach Glenn Vickery, who did have a player incident this season. He recalls his own experience with concussion.
I remember, I think it was against Fairhope, that I had a good tackle against somebody, and I sort of went back to the wrong huddle. And, you know, sort of those things that you remember.
The brain essentially floats in fluid inside the skull. A concussion occurs when the brain is jarred due to a hard impact.
That brain will jostle and move back and forth. So in a concussion, okay, when that happens, there's a disruption of nerve fibers that may not be seen on an x-ray.
Fortunately for today's athlete, concussion awareness is at the forefront. Modern medicine and pressure from federal and state laws require safety measures never seen before. One of the most important factors in treating head injuries is knowing what to look for, not only immediately after the collision.
Headaches, confusion, dizziness, balance difficulties.
But also when it's okay to get back to play.
If the neuropsychological tests are back to their baseline and they're symptom-free, then we start them on an activity program in conjunction with a physical therapist that's affiliated with the team to increase their activity. And if they remain symptom-free with increased activity and no contact, then we get them back into contact.
Dr. Anthony Martino is chair of neurosurgery at USA Health Systems. The baseline he referred to is something both Daphne and UMS do for their athletes. An annual fee of $500 allows the schools to conduct baseline tests on 100 athletes with up to 20 follow-ups through companies like Impact.com. The tests are designed to create a unique standard for each individual by quizzing them on word and shape recognition, reaction time, and memorization. It's something that Williamson head coach Derek Sumter would like to see done for his kids.
Anything that it prevents it, anything that could bring more knowledge and safety, that they'll be willing to introduce. And maybe I think the wonderful job that they do is something already in place for us to meet them guidelines.
The game of football is evolving. When I ask the coaches to predict the future of high school football, they're convinced the game as we know it will soon change.
Your next 20 years, you may be playing in shorts. It may be 7-on-7. It may be, you know, I don't know. I don't know where it's going. I think the safety issue is important. It wouldn't take a whole lot of pressure from a government source to change everything.
I really believe that in the next 10 to 15 years, probably that it won't even be full contact high school sports anymore.
Even as awareness of concussion issues grows, more and more kids are playing the game at a younger age. Dr. Martino is concerned and says there's not enough known about the long-term effects of concussions to put the brains of growing children at risk.
I think you can learn a lot of things about football without having to tackle when you're 6 years old to 10 years old, you know, and starting those types of contact later on would probably be better.
It's important to know that youth football leagues are also required to follow safety standards and have their helmets recertified regularly. As a parent, it's advisable to check your child's equipment at the beginning of each season and check for the recertification mark. Concussions don't just happen on the football field. They occur in many sports and in everyday life. Know the signs, and if there are any, be sure and see a healthcare specialist trained in head injury before you go back to normal physical activity. If you're curious how your child's helmet stacks up, go to our website, fox10tv.com, where you can find impact test ratings for individual helmet brands.
And when it comes to those baseline tests for players, it is not a requirement in Mobile or Baldwin County Public Schools. It is up to each individual school to decide whether or not to test players before the season.